Good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very special show today. Well, hey, thank God it's Friday, but it's a very, very wet Friday right here in Brisbane. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking to Nerin, and what a wonderful story that she has got to share with us, and congratulations to her on the launch of her very, very wonderful book. So, congratulations, and let's get into this interview. And that's the cover of the book that she's just launched. And to talk about all of that, let's join that interview. Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very special segment. And today on the Air Mix Show, we're going to be discussing some moments which come in between birth and death. So what are these moments? To look at those, today we are honored to have in the studio with us Nerin Naidu. Nerin, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And it is quite interesting about this book, and it is about some short stories and it's a collection about women, their struggle and their strive, success and survival in the ever-changing world. And yes, don't you know about that, that these days there's so much that's happening in that space. Then, a book which has been released, a new release of Brisbane author Nerin, spans multiple generations, continents and cultures, giving words to those without voices and the voices to those with words. With that, let's get right into the interview and find out about this book. So once again, Nerin, what has been your inspiration to write this book?
I've actually worked with a number of women from different cultural groups, linguistic groups, refugees, people from diverse backgrounds. And with this in mind, I heard lots of stories that resonated with me. I thought these stories needed to be told and voices needed to be heard. This is where the inspiration for the book came from. Yep.
And quite beautifully narrated that's motivation enough to put a pen to paper and get those thoughts going. Well, I'll just before we get more into the book, let's take a little bit a step back and let's get to know you. So, born in South Africa. So, yes. How was it? Let's get to know, you and your upbringing there in South Africa.
Okay. Yes. I was born in South Africa to a Hindu family. My family believes strongly in cultural values. Very into the belief of doing what your parents tell you to do. I was the second child, the second of two, middle child, the daughter. I have two sisters, an older sister and a younger sister, so being the middle child, I always questioned. I went to university, what was known at the time as Durban Westville. It was an Indian university because at the time, the apartheid era in South Africa, we had segregation, different universities for different racial groups, and there was no mixing. I was very lucky to live at a time where we saw true transformation in South Africa, where the old system of apartheid broke down, and there was a form of liberation. I grew up in South Africa in an Indian community, as I said, where we didn't interact much with other racial groups because of apartheid. These barriers were broken down when I went to university, and I was able to mix with lots and lots of people, and this was the best life experience I could ever have. It taught me about the world out there. And I saw it as such a big, beautiful place with so much of potential and so much of possibility. And I was able to write. This was my true passion.
And such a moving story. So, looking at that separation and segregation, being, kept away from the other communities, and then getting exposure. So, how has that experience and that upbringing, helped you, or what impact did that have mentally on you moving forward in life?
I suppose we came from a very closed cocoon of a life. Learning about other cultures, meeting different people, interacting with different cultural, racial, linguistic groups, religious groups, it gave me a whole new worldview. I realized that the little bubble we lived in was just that, a tiny bubble. I realized that there was a whole big world out there waiting to be explored, stories that were waiting to be told. And with this in mind, I discovered a lot about myself. My interest in different communities and cultural groups. Hence, I studied anthropology as my basic degree, where I learned about different cultures, different communities, and I loved every minute of it. I just thought it was such an eye-opener. I took this and linked it with my love for writing, and my writing career took off from there. So I wrote lots and lots of stories, but I kept it away. I didn't think that at the time I was ready to share. I went on to study teaching. I did a diploma and degree in education. I went on to do further qualifications in education, specializing in special educational needs and learning support. I then pursued this in South Africa, and at the time I loved it, but I had opportunities open in Canada. So it was a choice of whether to continue in South Africa or to take the next step and move on, which I did. We went to Canada as a family, my husband, 2 children, and myself, and I loved it. I loved it, but we had job opportunities open in Australia, and the climate was so similar to Durban. So the decision was made as a family that this is where we would live. So we did.
And that was quite a decision, because if you look at the lush green Canada to the sun-kissed and dry Australia, but the weather is very, very beautiful here. That's for sure. And as you mentioned, that in line with Devon. And I've had the opportunity of visiting Devon twice. A beautiful, beautiful place, and I think one of the best Indian cuisines in the world is still made in Devon, generations and generations afterwards. So that was going to be one of my questions, the decision between Canada and Australia. But as you have explained, that's very good. So settling down here in Australia, down under, the ways and the teams, the casual lifestyle, and the casual approach to many things in life. So how did you adjust with that cultural difference?
Initially, it was a bit tough because coming from a strict Hindu family, we did not have a temple or community structure in the little town we first settled in. We were actually one of the first Indian families in the town. People, or little kids, I must say, were not exposed to people of color as such. And I had lots of comments. I had lots of questions, I suppose, from inquiring little minds. But it turned out to be a beautiful experience, very enlightening for not just myself, but for the children I taught. I loved every minute of it as well. But progress took us to Brisbane, away from the small town. My children were growing, and I thought of schooling for them. So the prospect of coming to a bigger city looked good, and hence Brisbane. So yeah.
So here we are, and so Brisbane, was the winner that you are here now.
Thank you.
Now, okay, so that's amazing. That's an amazing story, and looking at people who come from culturally diverse backgrounds and the upbringing, then coming to another nice country adjusting with the country, and then adapting to the climate, adapting to the ways of life, the normality. Some things which are normal in one country is completely taboo in some places. Things that you don't talk about, adjusting to all of those. So let's dive a little bit into the book itself. What can people expect?
Stories about women, everyday real stories, experiences that most people can identify with. There are sometimes happy endings, other times no, not so much. The book reflects real life and so little of fantasy, but more so stories that people can relate to, women can relate to, and from the people or the audience that have purchased the book and have read it, I've had lots of people say to me, "Oh, I understand," or "I've been there," or "Yes, that was me." I actually had that this morning where a lady read a part of the book and she said to me, "That was my life. How did you know?" So the stories are very real. It is relatable, and people can see themselves in these stories. Yep.
And that is, again, beautifully said, because when people, fantasies are fantasies, okay. But when you talk about real life experiences and things that people have actually gone through, if they can feel that pain, the pleasure, or that joy, or that moment. Only yesterday, I was editing a special radio program from one of our presenters, and the things that she was saying, I said, I can relate to that. That is so much me. Is she talking about me? So then you actually connect. You connect with the stories, and that's amazing. Okay, so with the book, when is it going to be launched, and where can people expect to get copies?
The book has been launched. It is out at the moment on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble's, Booktopia, on my website. So it's quite accessible, quite available. I'm having a big launch coming up next week, which I'm really looking forward to. And from there, I'm hoping to get it into local bookshops. I'm also hoping to get it into local libraries. I've been in negotiation with some of the libraries, so that's the first step. I just wanted to do the formal book launch, get it out there, and then take that next step.
And congratulations on that. And that website is scrolling at the bottom of the screen, www.nerinaidu.com. So that's scrolling on the bottom of the screen, and it's also in the Brisbane Indian Times. You can look it up. So it's available on Amazon and other platforms as well. So congratulations, Nerin, and hope the book does very, very well. One last question before I let you go, because when I was reading about you, I'm quite intrigued about a lot of our Indian diaspora and people who have been brought in different countries, and I note, as a fourth generation of Indian origin. So did you ever, or did your family ever trace their roots back to India?
Yes, we have. We do have strong links with India. My mother's family in particular. We were able to trace family that we were in contact with, but having been fourth generation, something was lost along the way. But yes, we have.
And that is amazing, because that is an area which interests me a lot, trying to find, and we know that in many countries, Fiji, Suriname, Guyana, and other places, many people have lost contacts. And Indian government has a special program, Know Your Roots, where they will help and assist. But sometimes, you need to solve all the immigration papers. Another topic for another day. I think that's a very full topic again. But once again, congratulations on the book launch, and I hope it does well. And to all our listeners out there, grab a copy, because these are real life the experiences And you will, and I'm sure, relate to those stories. Once again, Nerin, thank you so much for coming in the studio and sharing this your thoughts with everyone.
Thank you for having me.
So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, up to date on the AMX show, and what an intriguing story. And of course, congratulations once again, and that book launch. And of course, you can get it from the website, and you can get it from Amazon as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you in that segment. But right now, let's take a look at what do you have in store for us in the weekend, what's coming up in terms of functions and events. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us and on this very, very wet Friday. Well, if you're out and about, do take care, especially on those roads. In the wet conditions, the roads could be very, very slippery. And of course, if there are any outdoor functions, do check, double check with the organizers as to some alternative arrangements that might be made. Some programs have been cancelled or postponed for now. So keep an eye out. And if you are subscribing to Brisbane Indian Times, you will get the EDM of all the functions and events taking place by the end of today. And don't forget that the radio shows for Australian Indian Radio, some brand new shows coming on. Don't forget today at 5, we have RJ Ari coming back with his Bollywood Beats Down Under. And very soon, as the news show, My Marathi by RJ Savi is going to go on air as well. Plus all the regular ones that are there. Tapas Mandal with his Bengali show, Madhu Khannaji and RJ Savi, and not forgetting Kavita Ji. So there's many specialist programs. Do check our website for updates and things like that. Now, one of the things that we say, if you are listening to the radio, as it is available on many different platforms, if it depends upon which platform you're listening via, sometimes the timing might be a little bit out of whack. It's because of the platforms itself. And as per our the stream which goes on and which is then on shared by all these platforms, there might be a little bit of a difference. And for some of the platforms, unless you refresh, you could get stuck with a repeat of the show as well. So, repeat and other things are options within those platforms. So, when we stream one stream which is then shared by many different platforms. That's why sometimes it's hard to trace exact numbers of listeners, because it's just not on one platform, so many different platforms. But again, it's wonderful, and thank you everyone for the feedback. And we'll catch up on Monday on the AMX show. But don't forget that the Australian Indian Radio 24/7, many variety of shows. Do tune in and stay safe in this wet weather.